Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we are comparing two of Pimax's latest VR headsets, the Crystal Light and the Crystal Super, to help you figure out which one makes the most sense for you. Specs and marketing only tell part of the story, and having spent time with both, I'll share how they actually perform in terms of comfort, visuals, and FPS, along with what I think offers the best value. Here in the UK, after tax, shipping, and Pimax Prime fees, the Crystal Light comes in at around £791, while the Super is £1,519, nearly double. So the big question is whether the Super justifies that extra cost. Thanks to Pimax for sponsoring the video and for lending me both headsets. It will be a sad day when they have to go back, as if you've never tried Flight Sim in VR, it really is a whole new experience. If you're interested, I'll leave my affiliate link in the description, and if you use code AIRNOT, you can get 3% off of the upfront cost of a headset. It's also worth mentioning, if you're upgrading from another headset, until the end of 2025, Pimax are running their PCVR upgrade event, where if you can provide proof of purchase for your old VR headset and they approve it, you can unlock exclusive rewards when upgrading to the Crystal Light or the Crystal Super. For the Crystal Light, you can receive a coupon code worth up to $100, and for the Super, you'll receive a premium gift bundle, including the Pimax DMAS audio solution and free prescription lenses powered by Hans VR. No 3% discount if you go the route of the VR upgrade event, as you're already getting a good chunk of savings through the upgrade offer. You can't have it all, sorry. So let's talk about design and comfort. Surprisingly, the Crystal Super is a little bit more compact than the Light, and when both are using the DMAS audio solution, the Super is only 2 grams heavier, despite packing in all that extra tech. One accessory I'd strongly recommend is the facial foam for comfort kit. The standard foam is thin, and with glasses, I found that the glasses would touch the lenses of the VR headset, which isn't great for comfort or long-term durability. The comfort kit adds padding and clearance, and for £15, it's a no-brainer. The Super has a redesigned head strap in an attempt to further balance the weight of the headset. The thing though that made the biggest difference for me on the Super was the optional top strap that runs side to side across your head. I found when dialed in correctly, this took a lot of the weight off of my nose and cheeks. Pimax do sell a similar top strap which is compatible with the Light for £15. I haven't tried this model specifically, but if I had to guess, I would say this will likely be a nice improvement for long-term comfort. One feature of the Super that I really liked is the automatic IPD, the IPD being the distance between your eye pupils. Thanks to the eye tracking, it can automatically measure this and then set it accordingly. On the Light, you have to measure it with a ruler and then enter it manually into the headset. Not the end of the world, but with the Super, it definitely makes this way smoother, especially if you're sharing the headset with others. Let's talk visual quality. The Crystal Light runs at 2880 by 2880 pixels per eye. That's around 8.3 million pixels per eye. That's over 16 million in total. The Super then pushes this even further to 3840 by 3840 pixels per eye. That's just over 29 million pixels across both eyes. Numbers aside, the Super does look sharper. It has lenses with a larger sweet spot and a noticeably wider field of view. The Light still does look excellent, but once you've experienced the Super, it's kind of hard to unsee it. The only area where the Light came out ahead for me was with Mura. For those that don't know what Mura is, it's where you get an uneven brightness and contrast across the displays. It kind of appears like an irregular pattern over the screen. Some people say it's like looking through a very thin layer of fabric. Both headsets show it a little bit, but I did notice it more on the Super. In practice though, during normal flying, it wasn't distracting, and it can vary unit to unit, so your mileage may vary. Another advantage of the Super is its modular optical engines. Mine has the ultra-wide version with 50 pixels per degree and a 140 degree field of view, but Pimax do have others, and there are more coming, including a micro OLED option. So given all the pixel count we just spoke about, it's fair to say that both headsets are demanding. Even the Light can push your GPUs hard. So let's talk performance and see how they compare in terms of FPS. My test system comprises of an AMD 7900 XTX GPU with 24 gigs of VRAM. My CPU is an AMD 9800 X3D, and I'm running 64 gigs of DDR5 6000 CL30 memory. The benchmark we're going to be doing today is flying the Cessna 172 around Perranporth in Cornwall. We're going to be using the medium preset for all tests. Live weather will be off, and we'll be using the Few Cloud setting. Starting with the Super, we're going to begin running with TAA at an 80% render resolution. In the Pimax Play app, we're going to have the image quality set to medium, and we're not running any upscaling or using any foveated rendering. And you can see this gives us around about 45 FPS, which isn't bad considering the resolution of the Super. Enabling foveated rendering makes a big difference on the Super. Keep in mind that it is dynamic foveated rendering thanks to the eye tracking. This is where the high resolution portion of the image follows wherever you look. I was worried it might lag behind the eye movement, but it never did. With this enabled, FPS climbed up to around 60 with no noticeable image quality loss. Stacking FSR upscaling on top of this in performance mode pushed things even further to around 70 FPS, but here's the catch, visuals did look a bit jagged and a bit fuzzy. I initially blamed FSR, but the culprit was actually Pimax Play's medium image quality preset, which actually runs at a 0.75x render scale. Switching to a custom 1x render scale was a revelation. The Super just came to life. Clarity was stunning, but FPS did drop back into the mid-40s, and this was while running FSR in performance mode, while also running the dynamic foveated rendering. Losing the dynamic foveated rendering and then changing FSR from performance to quality obviously saw FPS drop down from there, but damn, yeah, the visuals, they looked absolutely amazing. My advice then, with the Super, start at the 1x render scale in the Pimax Play app and then dial it back only if you need more performance. Running it at medium, to me, just left so much visual quality untapped, it almost defeats the whole purpose of owning the Super. On the Crystal Light, starting with the same baseline, TAA at 80%, medium image quality in the Pimax Play app, no upscaling or foveated rendering. I also saw around 45 FPS, which is basically identical to the Super. Adding fixed foveated rendering, no eye tracking here on the Light, of course, bumped FPS into the mid to high 60s. It's not as seamless as the Super though, because the high resolution area is locked to the center of the frame, so you need to move your head more than you move your eyes. I still didn't find the lower res edges too distracting though, possibly because they often fell outside of the Light's smaller lens sweet spot. Layering on FSR in performance mode pushed FPS up into the 80s, turning off foveated rendering dropped us by around about 10 FPS. While FSR was in quality mode, that gave us around 70 FPS when it was paired with foveated rendering, or low to mid 50s without the foveated rendering. Switching to an image quality of 1x on the Light wasn't as transformative as it was on the Super. FPS dropped from 80-ish down to 62 to 64 FPS, but the visuals only looked slightly sharper. Unlike the Super, I'd say the Light looks great at medium. Going to 1x just isn't worth losing 15 to 20 FPS in most cases, I would argue. In terms of upscaling options for AMD users, FSR3 is your main option. NVIDIA users, DLSS is superior, but you can also use FSR if you want. Don't know why you would though. And there's also NVIDIA Image Scaling, or NIS for short, as you sometimes might see it. It's worth mentioning this too because it's like a lightweight spatial upscaler integrated into the Pimax Play app. It doesn't use temporal data like DLSS, but in Microsoft Flight Simulator, where motion is relatively slow, using NIS instead of DLSS can actually get you better FPS in the same situations. We've got a full deep dive on NIS on the channel if you want to learn more about that. So then, final thoughts on performance. For the Crystal Super, absolutely crank the image quality in the Pimax Play app to 1x if your hardware allows it. This is where the headset really shines. Pair this with dynamic foveated rendering and some upscaling and you should see some pretty decent frames. For the Crystal Light, medium image quality in the Pimax Play app already looks excellent, and upping it to 1x just isn't worth the FPS loss, in my opinion. Again, add in some upscaling and you should see some fairly good results there. Up to you if you want to do the foveated rendering, because of course with the Crystal Light it is fixed foveated rendering, not dynamic foveated rendering. Upscaling is pretty much a must on both headsets. If you've got an NVIDIA card, go with the DLSS option over FSR because, in my opinion, it's just a better upscaling technology. As for foveated rendering on the Super, it's a no-brainer thanks to the eye tracking. Turn that on. On the Light, it is still useful, but just a bit less elegant. Maybe try it, see how you get on. So which one should you buy? To me, the difference feels like comparing a 1440p monitor with a 4K monitor. The Light is like 1440p, fantastic in its own right, but once you've spent time in 4K, or in this case the Super, it's really hard to give that up. The Super's visuals are much sharper. You've got a wider FOV, a larger lens sweet spot, automatic pupil distance measuring, and it all adds up to a noticeably better experience. But it also needs more GPU power, and it's nearly double the price. If you've built a high-end PC and you want the best VR experience that Pimax currently offers, the Super is hard to ignore. Though if you'd rather save the money, lighten the load on your PC and still get an excellent VR experience, the Lite is a brilliant option. I hope you found today's video useful. Let me know if you've got any questions in the comments. If I don't know, I'm sure I can find someone at Pimax who does. Like I said at the start of the video, I'll leave my affiliate links below for both the Pimax store in general and for their PCVR upgrade event. It's up to you if you want to use them, but if you're going to make a purchase anyway, it is a great way to support the channel at no additional cost to you. Thank you very much for watching, folks, and until next time, you all look after yourselves, be good to each other, and as always, happy flying.